Righty. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Wonderful people. We are so excited to have you today. I'm going to give a couple more seconds just for folks to join the room. I'm going to go ahead and administer a quick poll just to get a feel for how everyone's already feeling about Screencastify. I hope everyone's week is off to an incredible start. Like I said, we will get started in just a second. Welcome. Hey, Cynthia. Anyone else who wants to drop a hi in the chat box, tell us where you're joining from. We are so excited to have you. We have a wonderful jam-packed 30 minutes planned for you guys today. So thank you for joining. I have a feeling it is going to be fantastic. Hey, everybody. All right, so in the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and get started. We have a ton to chat about today. I'm really excited to be here. Today, we are here to talk about how you can use video to get yourself ready for, we call it test prep, but really any and all end of the year assessments. So we have some wonderful guests here to give us some insight into some of the amazing ways that they are using Screencastify and that we have seen other teachers use Screencastify. So let's go ahead and jump right in. I am Olivia Nelson. I'm the head of professional development at Screencastify. Before I came to Screencastify, I was an educator for about a decade. I taught tons of grades and subjects, but third grade math is where my heart is. So if you see me present, that's what you'll see on a slide. And then I did curriculum and development for a number of years after that. I'm going to kick it over to some of our other panelists to introduce themselves as well.
Hi, I'm Renee Dawson. I'm an educational technology specialist in Atlanta, Georgia. Before that, I was a special education teacher for 15 years. I currently manage the Verizon Innovative Learning Schools initiative as the coach at my middle school. I'm an EdTech badge collector, and please feel free to tweet me at APS Dawson.
Amazing. Welcome, Renee.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I am Sean Conway. I'm the Director of Customer Solutions at Screencastify. Really excited to be with you all today and these lovely colleagues and panelists that we have here. Prior to coming to Screencastify, I was a high school teacher, department chair, and assistant principal for about 12 years, the last several of which were rooted in like traditional blended learning, I would say from 2014 to 16, before video was as readily available as it is now. So I oftentimes look back and wish that we were there, but hey, really excited to chat with y'all today.
Thanks, John. And last but obviously not least, Melissa. I don't know if you're on mute. If you're talking about, you might be on mute.
How long have we been doing this, folks? I am so sorry. I thought I unmuted myself. But hello, darlings. My name is Melissa Kincaid. I currently serve as a learning technology specialist for Cincinnati Public Schools. I have been teaching for 20 years. I am old in the game, and I am a complete nerd about all things math and technology and engagement. It's nice to meet everyone.
Awesome. Welcome, Melissa. So we are, like I said, going to chat about a bunch of different things. We have almost made it to the end of the year. Congratulations to everyone out there. We are so excited. We have done a lot of teaching. Our students have done a lot of learning. And so we really want to take this time to think about how we can allow students to demonstrate their learning. And obviously, since we're here to talk about Screencastify, we're going to weave some video stuff in to think about how video can really help us assess student learning that we've done over the course of the year. So let's go ahead and chat first about the what and the why of end of year assessments. There are obviously a lot of different assessments that students can engage in at the end of the year. So let's go ahead and chat about a couple of those. So Renee, if you wouldn't mind kicking us off, I want to talk a little bit about how we can plan for and celebrate growth in students. So when we think about different kinds of assessments, this would sort of be included in a formative assessment category, in that we would be assessing student growth across the course of a year. And Renee, I know you have a ton of incredible ideas, and I'd love for you to share some of the ways that you're planning for and celebrating student growth.
Definitely. We use the MAP test, the Measure of Academic Progress test. We give it 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring. And we incentivize students to achieve their growth goal that the system sets for them after they take it the first time in the fall. We create a roadmap at the beginning of the year that they can set SMART goals to help get them to the end of the year, to show their projection on our Georgia milestone statewide assessment. And then the students that meet their growth goal, we have a block party for them, and they get a personalized invitation to attend the block party from their teacher or from the principal. And the principal usually even gets in the dunk tank at the block party.
That is incredible. Now, you know that I couldn't let this kind of question go by without asking you if there are ways that you are incorporating video into that celebration piece. I think it's incredible to think about incentivizing student growth and getting them excited about it from the very beginning of the year. And I'd be curious about how video might play into that.
Yeah, definitely. We use QR codes on the certificates in order for the teachers to send the students congratulatory messages or messages of encouragement for achieving their goals.
Wow, wow, incredible. Thank you, Renee. If you're ever looking for innovative ideas in education, Renee is the cutting edge of education, so definitely stick with her. You guys may have noticed I dropped in the handout section some links to those things that Renee was mentioning. So both the learning path and that template for the student certificate, so that you guys can see some of the ways that she is incorporating video and celebrating student growth and progress over the course of the year. All righty. I would love to also think about summative assessments, right? I think that it is incredible to celebrate student growth, but Melissa, I'd love to kick it over to you to hear a little bit about how you're engaging in summative assessments or thinking about them at the end of the year.
Absolutely. So with summative assessments, these are the assessments that, the end of course exams that students have, or the statewide testing that students have. That's not the fun part of what we do. However, we can use video in which to prepare the students for those tests in creative ways. So for example, we often have our students create scripts to explain on video how to answer a math problem, because it's very difficult for them to answer these kind of extended response math problems. But when we tell them to write a script, then it's a little bit friendlier and it's more engaging because they're going to be on video. And then they in turn evaluate those scripts, and then they can use those to create their video. And then when they're testing, we'll tell them, answering that question is just like writing a script, right? And it kind of calms them down and eases them a little bit because they've already went through that writing process. We are very, very intentional with how we lead them through that writing process to make sure they have like proper vocabulary and things like that. So it makes writing to demonstrate their understanding a lot more accessible and a little less scary.
Thanks for that, Melissa. Sean, I don't want to leave you out of this. Is there anything that you want to add on to what these two lovely ladies have said already?
Just how impressive, I think, first, what Renee and Melissa were sharing it. And I think as they were talking and kind of speaking to the way in which they're creatively using video to celebrate and really enhance both the reporting and assessment piece, I also think about that renewable resource component, and that in both the examples that Renee and Melissa are talking about, the kind of end product is something that's going to live on, and they're going to be able to use and kind of repurpose and repackage that for a lot of things. And so when you consider the compilation of these summative assessments as student-led conferences and different kind of portfolio-based works start to become a lot more frequent and common, I think that video just kind of continues to become a really organic and natural way that we are looking at student growth.
Thanks for that. So I think that I like how you said that in kind of the preparation and the reporting and the assessing piece, Sean. I thought that was really wonderful. When I think about getting ready for these tests, be they formative assessments or summative assessments, one thing that comes to mind is differentiation, right? Regardless of whether we're measuring student growth or measuring students against sort of a hard and fast benchmark, we might want to differentiate instruction in order to make sure that we're meeting student needs and helping them meet those goals, right? So I'd love to know a little bit, Sean, about how you have used video, and it's almost like you're a mind reader, in terms of kind of creating things that you can reuse over and over so that students have them at their disposal. So I'm going to jump over to this GIF here that kind of shows with Screencastify how you can add videos together, right? So at the bottom here, you see there are a couple of videos spliced together. And I'd love, Sean, if you could just speak to a little bit about how this might be renewable.
Most definitely. And I think the visual is a really great kind of launch pad into considering how teacher delivery and then the way in which we're preparing our students is always based upon our desire to do what is best for our students. We all know that. We also need to acknowledge, though, that there are certain just limitations on the time and structure of a teacher schedule that can make that really challenging sometimes. So how can we leverage video to free up some of those teacher time constraints while simultaneously offering students a more accessible path to access their learning that's convenient for them, but is also going to enhance the way in which they're kind of receiving that information. And so what Olivia is showing is specifically in the editor, one of the examples that I gave previously was like, I was an AP US history teacher. And so I remember the weeks leading up to the AP exams are really intense review processes and every subject has them, whether it's before school, after school, for however many days you're doing it. And that's a manual teacher process where you are doing these reviews for 30, 45, 60 minutes, multiple days in a row on top of the normal teaching load. That's a lot. When we consider now how video makes this possible, the way in which that kind of delivery occurred maybe was not always even, and that maybe I had it on Tuesday, but on Wednesday, just like I wasn't feeling it. And like it's different. But when we use video, we can create customized options that students can then continue to use these. So if I have great instructional videos that I have made throughout the course of a year, when I get to AP test prep time, just as an example, I now am going to go cherry pick these review components, drop them into my Screencastify editor, slot in title slides before each of those instructional videos. And now I have produced an even better version of what I was doing in a manual basis before, and I'm saving myself all that time. So it's really a win-win because the students then too have the option to change the playback speed. They can pause and rewind. And that's just one example, I think, of many. I'd love to hear what Melissa and Renee have here, but that's something that I've considered quite a bit.
Yeah, I think one of the keywords that I hear you saying in that conversation is review. And so I know that both Melissa and Renee have some thoughts here about reviewing. And so I'd love to kick it over to either of them to think about what review can look like.
So for review with my students and my population, we have a lot of students that don't have support at home for true review help from a parent or true homework help from a parent or a guardian. So one of the things that I like to do for my students or have done in the past for my students is add a QR code to the review sheet or to the homework to make it more dynamic. And that QR code would lead to a video of myself teaching the concept or reviewing the concept. And if I'm not comfortable on video, everyone has a video of something on YouTube. So I search YouTube and find that video of who I like teaching. I have my favorites that I usually go for first and link that QR code to the problem, because why invent the wheel? If somebody's already made it, then go ahead and use it. And then that way they have a true review. And if you do this for every test review that you have throughout the year, then by the end of the year, you have the entire year in review ready to go. And they can all of a sudden remember what they learned in August or remember what they learned in October that might have slipped out of their mind with what they've learned in April or May. And then they can get ready for whatever test you have or ready for the next grade or simply just review the whole year that they've learned.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that that is absolutely incredible. If you've ever heard me talk about video or Screencastify specifically before, I refer to myself as the QR code queen. So I absolutely love anything that has to do with QR codes, but specifically, I love here that, to Sean's point before, we're allowing learners to own their learning, right? I think when we send home review sheets, like you said, Renee, without that component, sometimes we're basically assessing students, but calling it review. Whereas when we add this QR code and this video option for reteach, now all of a sudden this becomes true review, where students can look back at content and make sure they understand in kind of a low stakes environment before they're actually engaging in any assessments. I do see there are a couple questions in the chat box. I promise we will get to them. So don't think we're ignoring you. I just want to make sure that we get to them and have enough time to really answer your questions at the end. Cool. So I also want to chat a little bit about our youngest learners. And I'm going to leave that sort of as a purposefully open definition. But I do want to think about, when we think about students that may not be taking state tests, or they may be engaging with a different set of assessments than their older peers, I think sometimes we think, there's no real possibility for those folks to kind of use video in assessments. So I'd love, love, love to know some of the ways, and Melissa, we didn't hear from you on the last question, so I'll jump to you first. Some of the ways in which we can assess early learners using video.
So I first of all want to say that I love Renee's idea about those QR codes in the review sheets, to the point that I got jealous that I didn't think about them before I met Renee. I wanted to shout her out, had to shout her out. Shout her out, sorry. But so when I think of accessing video with early learners, it really is key for teachers, because it becomes very, very time intensive to try and connect and have learners that are emergent readers demonstrate their learning. They can't write out a prompt. They can't read directions oftentimes when they're emergent readers. So I wanted to put in an example of a teacher that I work with that uses Screencastify to have the students to read on camera. So if you remember the old school, you sit down with a kid, you have the reading prompt, and you have to mark every time that they miss a word or miss a vowel sound or something like that. It's very time intensive for a teacher to do that. But if you're having the students do that with Screencastify, where they can bring up a reading prompt that, for example, she found this on YouTube. So they were reading the sight words off this YouTube video. It was zero prep for her. Then she could go back and watch their Screencastify videos and mark them on her own time. So it really was a time saver for her. And it is super adorable to see the kids reading on video. And it has the added bonus of them being able to directly see their progress. They can see, this is my video from September, and compare that to how they would read the same bank of sight words in January to really see their growth and celebrate it.
That is really cool. I'll open the floor in case Sean or Renee, if you had anything you wanted to share about early learners. Other than that, I have obviously many questions up my sleeve. Well, I think this is an incredibly, incredibly strong way to consider how early learners can be using video as an assessment tool, right? When we think about cloning ourselves for test prep, I think sometimes when you think about test prep for a kindergartner, it's like, oh, what does that even mean? So I think that, Melissa, thank you for kind of grounding us in the fact that assessments can look different and be different and still be supported by video. So the last thing that I want to touch on here before we get out of here is thinking about student creation of videos, right? So we've done a lot of talk about how teachers can use video and kind of make their lives easier with video, which, believe you me, I think is top of my priority list, is making teachers' lives easier, right? But I think we would be silly to get out of here without touching on the ways that we can actually have students create videos and have the videos serve as the artifact that demonstrates learning, right? As opposed to being a material for preparation or a material that's actually, used to assess the students. But how can student created videos serve as kind of their own artifact here. So Renee, I'd love if you could start by sharing with us some of the ways that you've seen students creating videos to demonstrate their learning.
Sure. I'm a big believer in choice boards. I love choice boards for assessment at the end of units because not every kid does great on a pencil paper ABC assessment. So I try to give choice boards to have those options for them to be creative, to really share what they learn. One of the ways I do that is called Teach the Teacher, where they get to record a video to show to the class that includes anything about the topic that I didn't teach them. So they get to really reach out and do some research and dive deep into the topic that we've covered to find something that wasn't covered or wasn't taught, and then teach myself and the class that as well. I have worked with struggling readers for several years, and one of the projects I would always have them do at the end of the year is to recreate a children's book and make it a read aloud for our younger students or some of our self-contained special ed classes. They would actually make the illustrations in a slide deck creator and then record on Screencastify reading the book, going page to page, and then kids could listen to the book and they wouldn't feel so self-conscious about reading a book on a lower level because they were making it for somebody else. And that always was great for their self-esteem and a great project to just get them into design and using more technology. Lastly, during virtual education, I had students in my social studies class do a time travel video where they got to record a video journal after every unit, showing themselves in that part of American history, going through time and talking about the perspective of someone in that time, what was going on during that time, kind of like a vlog, but like a future vlog. So they got to really make it fun and make it interesting for them and for everybody else who watched it. And then by the end of the year, they had everything from the Civil War to present day recorded on their vlog. And it was a really cool celebration to watch not only what they learned, but to watch how they progressed with their confidence and their video recording skills.
Thanks for sharing. That is incredible. Oops, here we go. Melissa, when you and I previously chatted about student created videos, you had some really incredible insight into some of the ways that you've seen students use it. So I'd love if you could share your insight there as well.
So I love using video at all times and in all aspects of my classroom. Other than it being a high engagement resource for students, it's also something that just connects with me. Like I am that teacher that loves YouTube and TikTok and videos and Facebook Reels and all of that stuff. And I talk to my students a lot about that. With these two, I had to limit it to two ideas that are specifically about the end of year, because that's what we're talking about in this webinar. So an academic use for using video at the end of the year is for the kids to give you a sense of what they felt was the most impactful of that year. So for example, I would ask my students to choose something they learned that year that they felt that they were just a rock star at, and create a tutorial video for future students on how to do that particular concept. So if they thought that they just rocked it out with long division, they would create a tutorial showing the next group of students how to do long division. The awesome thing about that is that you get to hear from the students what it was that you taught that year that impacted them the most, with the added bonus of having a student created video that you can use for the next year. So having the students create maybe those I told you I'm stealing your QR code idea, girl. Maybe have those student videos hooked to the review so they can see their peers. They're only 1 or 2 years older than them, so they're going to remember those students if they're from the same school. So you kind of get the students to do the work, and it empowers them to show you how they've learned the concepts in your class. The second idea is kind of non-academic, and I call it the advice column. So one thing that I did with my students at the end of every year, which I taught 8th grade, and we were trying to successfully get those teenagers to the high school, is they would write an advice column for the next group of students. And because 8th graders know everything there is to know about life, right? They had all of this great advice on how to be a successful 8th grade students. for the current seventh graders. But they had a lot of really good ideas about focusing and studying and balancing their sports life with their academic life. Being able to do that on video instead of just in writing just connects with their peers in a different way. And so, actually, hearing from the students what they feel is the most empowering set of skills to have in order to be successful in your class also tells you a lot about you as a teacher and what your students are really connecting with in order to be successful.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I think I love that we kind of are in this sort of teach the teacher, teach your peers, teach the next grade kind of realm of ways that students can really get involved and extend their learning and demonstrate their learning in a way that has impact beyond just like evidence for the teacher that they've done a good job teaching, right? I think that being able to share that knowledge with their peers and with other students that are kind of coming up is such a cool way to create like a continuum of learning across grades. So I appreciate both of you sharing those things. And then last but certainly not least, Sean, we haven't heard from you on this one, so I'm going to toss it over to you to just consider how students can use video to give presentations also.
Yeah, and I think Melissa and Renee's examples were so incredible because it touches on so many different ways in which the students are able to really display their learning. And I think as we take those and even extend further, video is like an end of the year component. However you slot that in, whether that's a summative assessment or demonstrate their learning, whatever terminology or wording we use, it allows students the ability to authentically show the teacher, like, did they get it? Yes or no? And that really at the fundamental core, I think, is helpful to teachers. And one of the best parts of using Screencastify, whether it's the record option or for the teacher created submit option, is that students can then also interact with one another. And I think so often when we create forums for students to sit in the room and talk to one another, those are of course so important and vital, but maybe they're not like ready or prepared to speak on what they were asked about. So if we have these options with video, the students can prepare and create ways to then submit a video about it, creating Screencastify based discussion boards, and then those things being kind of foundational pieces that can then create extension activities even further, then allow us to get to these kind of presentation components where they become a little bit more formal. And I think we'd also be remiss to not touch on the fact that all of the ideas that Melissa and Renee have shared are amazing, but the way in which students can engage with the technology is also one of the kind of methods through that being possible. It's like Screencastify is such a low barrier to technology entry in terms of creating these videos, is that it's not hard and it's not meant to be hard, where you can do a couple clicks and you're making a recording, where an 8-year-old can do it just like a 65-year-old can. And there's not a ton of difference between how the tool is working, which is intentional. So the fact that it is simplistic in nature, I think, allows people, regardless of technology and their familiarity or comfortableness with it, to kind of get into it together, which is also really exciting.
Yeah, mic drop. Sean has finished us off here, right? Like, so I just think that I want to say thank you to you guys for sharing such incredible ideas. I hope that the audience has kind of had their mind sort of buzzing with new ideas. That's certainly how I feel in terms of formative assessments, summative assessments, kind of Sean hitting on that collaborative piece where the students are kind of demonstrating learning and talking to one another, or are in communication with one another, even if they're not talking directly to one another, as ways that we can assess student learning at the end of the year. So whether it's sort of traditional test prep, whether it's something kind of more creative, certainly Melissa and Renee have given us enough creative ideas for a lifetime. We can use video as a way to really get an accurate picture of what our students have learned and really prepare them to adequately demonstrate all of the learning that they've done day in, day out for, all of the days of the school year. So again, thank you guys for coming. I hope that if you have questions, you feel free to drop them in the chat box. But that's all the information we had for you guys. I am going to drop my email address in the chat box. If the other panelists, I saw Melissa dropped hers up a little bit higher, but Melissa, if you wouldn't mind dropping that again. And then that way you guys can feel free, if you have other questions as you start to experiment with some of these ideas, we'd love, love, love to get those answered for you. So thank you again. I hope that you felt that today was useful. I hope you learned something new and are feeling a little bit more excited about a time of year that can sometimes feel a little overwhelming. So have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your evening, rest of your week, y'all. The Screencastify post board.
I use Wakelet to post all my videos when I have something like that, just as an easy way to collect all of them. You could use Wakelet. You could use a Google folder to put all of them in a Google Drive, depending on your LMS. But I like Wakelet because it lets the kids pick a picture to put as their profile picture for the video, and they can add some details to it. And then it's all curated in a collection. You can even do columns if you have different topics. You have plenty of options for that. I'm a big fan of Wakelet. So that's just my plug for them. But that's how I would do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Renee. Wakelet, yeah, I think it's spelled, is that Renee? Correct me if I'm wrong. Cool. And there's actually, Julie, an integration. When you create a video with Screencastify, you can put it straight on Wakelet without having to kind of do anything fancy there. So for now, you can go ahead and just post it there. Awesome. All right, y'all. Yes, thank you, Renee. Much more helpful. All right, y'all. Well, thank you so much for coming. I don't want to hold you any longer than we intended to. Julie, I'm so excited that you're excited. I hope the rest of you guys are just as excited. It was wonderful to be here with you guys today. Have a fabulous, fabulous, fabulous rest of your week.